Hello, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of our PAC Politics Podcast. Our podcast is brought to you by our organization, our United Resource PAC. If you don't know, we are a tax-exempt political organization. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever you happen to listen to this. Hello, and I hope you're having a good one. My name is Brittany McDowell. I am not only the host of this podcast, but I guess you could kind of call me a multifaceted kind of gal. I hold many roles and I have many hats for the or within the organization. But enough about me. This episode is not about me. Today we are talking about the polls, and we're looking at what the polls have to tell us about November 3rd. And if you've heard about some of these polls and you see what some of them are saying to us, some of you might be rather enthusiastic, but I urge you to grab a hold of your enthusiasm and check it, because I don't want your enthusiasm to lead to complacency or thinking that you don't have to do anything between now and November 3rd if you have not done anything. And if you don't know what I'm talking about the fact that you, my friend, while it is not your only form of political power, you do have the political power to vote, and it is something you should be doing, regardless of what the polls are saying. So this is not going to be a long, drawn-out conversation. This isn't going to be a long podcast episode, but there are a few things I want to note nonetheless. So sit back, let's get started, and I promise I won't take too much of your time today. All right, so let's talk about the general election, shall we? Let's talk about that general election regarding Vice President Biden, previous Vice President Biden, right? And current President Donald Trump. Pretty much no matter what poll you look at, chances are the poll is going to tell you that Biden has a lead over Trump. Again, it really does not matter what poll you look at. I say that you're going to be hard pressed, quite frankly, to find a poll that has Donald Trump in the lead. Yeah, in the words of the president, it is what it is, right? But here's the thing that I want to urge. I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time, talking about, theories and, kind of doing a whole bunch of analysis, but I really need to point something out. For those of you who do not want to see a continuation of the Trump presidency, for those of you who think that we have seen epic failures regarding our country's ability to handle, address, and defeat COVID-19, whether it be on a health level or on an economic level, if you do not want to see Donald Trump as president, I urge you very, very strongly, when you hear or see polls that say that Biden is in the lead, do not be complacent. Do not assume that, the lead is, so substantial that my vote doesn't matter. Let me tell you why. What we have seen the groundwork for when it comes to President Trump, we have seen starting months ago. I might even say well beyond a year, but as most certainly as we've gotten closer to the election in recent months, what we have seen the groundwork being laid for is a situation where the president is going to contest the results of the election should the margins of victory for Biden be relatively narrow. Okay. And that's even more solidified, but what we saw even more recently, which was the now granting of a Supreme Court, of adding Amy Barrett Comey, whatever, ACB, blah, 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 to the Supreme Court. She very likely, if we end up with a really contested election and things kind of waddle their way to the Supreme Court, she, obviously is going to most likely be in favor of President Trump continuing his presidency. So all of that said, again, I'm not going to like go into these deep, dark theories and talk about, oh, this is this and this is that. No, like, point of it is, just do not become complacent. Do not think, and I know that this might seem a little bit kind of weird coming from me because I'm the first to tell you that voting in and of itself is not your only form of political power. And I very well still believe that. Okay. So people who tell you that your only form of political power is voting, they are lying to you and they don't want you to assume more power than you actually have. But I don't want to say that to the detriment of your political power in voting. Okay. So that said, please, again, if you absolutely do not want to see a continuation of a Donald Trump presidency, yes, the polls are up. I'll even say this. I'll go as far as to say this. Look at what happened in 2016. Look at what happened 4 years ago. All right. The polls and stuff were up for Hillary Clinton and she still lost. So I want that to serve as kind of like a motivational factor for you. If you have not yet voted, if you are still kind of on the fence and you're still kind of like, oh, well, it's looking pretty good for Biden, little old me really doesn't matter. Think about what happened in 2016. I want you to keep that in mind because a lot of people were very, very certain that Hillary Clinton was going to be our president, but she was not. Quite frankly, I did not foresee that occurring. Not necessarily because I thought that, I'm not going to even go into that. Anywho, so I don't want you to become complacent. Now, when we look at these polls, again, not really going into like this deep, dark, super, detailed analysis, I just want to mention that it's really not hard. Like, you don't need to be a political pundit to understand why the polls look as they do right now. Okay? Point blank period, President Trump has failed the American people, and what we are seeing in the polls is a reflection of people's preference, not necessarily, and this is again something that I want to kind of reiterate that I mentioned in a previous segment before on a different episode. It's This election is not necessarily an election for Biden. This election is going to be, should President Trump not be reelected, it is going to be a referendum against him more so than it is kind of a support for a Joe Biden presidency. So again, let that also be a motivational factor for you to say, yo, people are, less likely to vote for, or they're more likely to not vote for Trump than they actually are to vote for Joe Biden. So keeping that in mind, yeah, again, you might assume, if you look at your kind of personal situation, you look at those around you, don't assume that people are going to look at what is going on in their lives, the fact that they've lost their jobs, the fact that they know people that, who have had COVID, or they've had COVID, or they know people who have unfortunately lost their lives due to COVID. Don't assume that those people are going to get out and vote. Like, it's sad to think that they won't, but don't assume that they are going to. And so take it upon yourself as you think about what's going on in your situation, as you think about what's happening with you. Take it upon yourself to say, you know what? I can't make necessarily people get up and vote, but I can get up and I can go vote myself. Now, there are ways that you can influence, not necessarily if people vote, but kind of how they vote. But it's another subject for another day. But in this instance, again, you can control you voting. So please, please, please do not be complacent. And related to kind of our focus as an organization, right? We focus on COVID-19 economic stimulus and relief. That is the only issue we are currently focused on. We're not focused on abortion. We're not focused on welfare reform, illegal immigration, none of those social issues. Not saying that they don't matter, but in this moment, before any of those things even matter, we first need to make sure that we have a country that is alive, healthy, and economically sustainable, right? And we can only get that if we get sufficient COVID-19 economic stimulus and relief. So that said, if you, again, kind of tying it back to at least you, not saying you necessarily want a Joe Biden presidency, but if you know for a fact that you do not want to see a continuation of what we have had with President Trump regarding the handling of COVID-19, I want you to remember that when you think about the fact that we do not have a stimulus right now, and you think about why I've talked many, many times about why we don't, and I'm not going to rehash that out. If just in summary, 2 words, Mitch McConnell, no, 3 words, Mitch McConnell pause, or pause, Mitch McConnell, or Mitch pause McConnell. That's maybe his new name, right? So if you think about why we do not have a stimulus package, and if you think about the fact that we need a stimulus package passed, when you think about what's going on with the economy, when you think about not just even like the broader economy, but your personal economy, your best hope for getting something that is going to stimulate you directly, like not stimulate businesses and hope it kind of trickles down, not, stimulate in the form of a payroll tax cut that is optional, that most employers aren't going to really even go for to begin with because they're going to have to pay it back at some point. No, the best hope of you actually getting something like in the form of a one-time or potentially recurring check on a monthly basis, or the option of seeing federally extended unemployment benefits, your best option is if we see a Joe Biden presidency along with the Democrats retaining the House, which is not a far-fetched thing. Pretty much I think everyone knows that the Democrats are going to retain the House. But in addition to that, what we also need is we need Democrats to, if they don't take control of the Senate, and that would be optimal, at the very least, they need to pick up more seats in the Senate. Okay? So, again, if anything, look, I'm not like some prophet who, knows kind of what's going to happen in the future. I don't. But I think what we're more likely to see is Trump lose the presidency and Mitch McConnell retain control of the Senate, a controlling majority in the Senate. If we see that, that is going to be all bad. And it sucks because I'd love to see him unseated. I'd love to see Mitch McConnell unseated since he is up for re-election. But somehow, some way, I know how. There's low voter turnout in Kentucky, and that, quite frankly, has aided, especially when you look at what happened in 2014. Low voter turnout basically handed Mitch McConnell his seat yet again on a silver platter. And I'm really hoping that if you are in Kentucky, or if you know people are in Kentucky, that you really understand how your elected official, how your senator has not just negatively impacted your state, but he is essentially holding the entire freaking country hostage. Right? And he's in some ways also holding a seat hostage, and y'all need to liberate it and just like let it go. Right? He's held it for far too long, and he needs to just let it go, right? So that said, all of that said, get out there and vote, because again, our best hope for seeing any type of stimulus that is going to personally impact you, like in a very direct way, not in like a trickle down, oh, you'll feel it in some sort of way, or you'll get a few extra nickels and cents and pennies with every, paycheck. No, if you actually want to see receive that check in the mail, if you actually want to see more contact tracing, if you actually want to see more testing, if you want to see a lot of things that are not necessarily optional, but pretty darn required given the current circumstances, we need to see, again, Joe Biden as president, and we also need to see Democrats retain the House, and we need to see, if we cannot take the Senate, we need more seats in the Senate. That way, we can get some votes from the Senate to join votes with the House to go ahead and pass a stimulus package. Because remember, no portion, no chamber, no body of Congress can pass stimulus on its own, including the presidency, which is why any of you who hear Donald Trump say, oh, reelect me and I'm going to give you the biggest, bestest, most believable-est, greatest, darnest stimulus package America has ever seen. It's going to be the biggest. He can't do it by himself, right? He absolutely can't. And this is why we've seen, even if he has said in recent times that he's willing to go along with Nancy Pelosi and he wants bigger numbers, it hasn't happened, not necessarily because he genuinely doesn't want it, because I've pointed out before, he's at odds with Republicans. Like, there's a lot of infighting going on there. But it hasn't happened because he can't make it happen on his own, right? And a lot of people, this should be a civic lesson to those of you who believe that the president is this like kind of authoritarian figure who can really do whatever the heck he pleases. Newsflash, he can't, right? If Obama couldn't give us health care that was afford, because and it really boggles my mind how we call it Obamacare when, quite frankly, this was really not at all. The Affordable Care Act was more modeled after what Republicans wanted and nowhere near what Democrats actually wanted, given kind of the record number of filibusters we had seen at the time, so on and so forth. But I'm not going to go on that tangent. But so all of that said, get out there and vote. Don't be complacent. And this does not just apply at the top of the ticket. This just does not apply. It does not apply that it is only necessary for you to vote in favor of certain politicians at the top, because as we see, the top in and of itself just doesn't matter. If your values don't also carry over to your down ticket votes, your senators, your House representatives, if those people aren't the right people in office, it doesn't matter who you put at the top of the ticket anyways, because all they will do is exactly what Mitch McConnell has done, which is obstruct, obstruct, and obstruct. And we've had enough obstruction. America is tired of it. And I'm pretty certain we're going to see a referendum come November 3rd. It's fall, and you know what that means, right? You can find us on Facebook. No, I know that fall and Facebook have nothing to do with each other, but they both start with the letter F. So, according to my logic, perfect time to tell you about finding us on Facebook since it is fall. Isn't that exceptional logic? By my point of view, it is. Anywho, in the description box below, you'll find a link to our Facebook page. Check us out. If you like us, like our page, we'll be more than glad to have you. Again, find us on Facebook. Look in the description box below for the link. Hey, this is Brittany. Just wanted to shoot you a quick reminder. Look in the description box of this episode and you can find a link to our website. On our website, you can find our latest blog posts. You can find our contact information. You even want to make a contribution, you can go over there and do that as well. You can find out the policies we are looking at and targeting as an organization. I say all the time that we are a tax-exempt political organization. If you want to know more about that, again, go on over to our website, our-pack.com, where you can find out everything you want to know. You can do everything you want to do. We will gladly welcome you on our website with open arms. Again, check out our website in the description box below. All right, so again, thank you for tuning in to this Wednesday episode. I am, I'm not even going to say that, but I'm not sure if I said earlier that it was Friday, but just to clarify, in case I did, because I don't remember, I didn't finish my coffee, so give me a little bit of grace if you want grace extended to you. But if I did say it was Friday, it is Wednesday. So totally excuse me if I did. But if I'm apologizing for nothing, forget I said this, because I'm totally not having a moment. So that said, happy Wednesday. And again, thank you for tuning in to this episode. Just a reminder, if I don't believe I said it today, but hopefully I mentioned it on Monday's podcast episode, Friday we are off. And that said, I will not be making a recording. So be advised that you will not be getting a recording from me on Friday. You will not hear from me again until the day before the election, which is next Monday. And then we'll have an episode the day after the election. And so this is probably going to be my final lame kind of episode, because the next two should be kind of exciting, right? So again, thank you so much for tuning into this Wednesday episode. Oh my gosh, there I went again, right? This is why I need to finish my coffee before I do the podcast. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. Wear your hazmat suit if you're like me. Wear your goggles too, because they're super awesome. And in case you didn't know, COVID can get in through your eyes. So eyes, lives matter too, in case you didn't know. That's it. Have a good one, guys. I will see you next Monday. Stay safe, wear your hazmat suit, and I will catch you on the flip side.